Look at all these brand new trucks on the lot here today. But customers continue to get screwed. What we're seeing, a lot of these truck manufacturers have raised the price, the MSRP. We're actually seeing another increase in the average transaction price. Yes, $48,500 gets you the average, but as we know, these aren't average. And as we also know, a lot of these pickup trucks are cost a significant amount of money. $48,000 is not the price for a vehicle like this. I mean, a pickup truck like this, we looked at this last week, and we're talking about a truck that's going to be around that $70,000, $80,000 range. We're seeing Raptors start at $100,000 going up to north of 200 grand. We've also seen the Shelby F-150 also go almost $190,000, and the F-150 Lightning is getting a bump. Even though it's not selling, it's getting an increase for 2025. And even Ram right there, not even selling as many trucks as they should be, and they're increasing prices as well. We're seeing prices rise. The Tungsten, their fully loaded truck, we're seeing way north of $100,000. Where Ford F-150 Platinums are well over $100,000, and even manufacturers like Nissan with the Titan, who can't even sell them, nobody's buying them, our prices are going up as well. What's going on in this cost of living crisis? And a lot of people clearly can't buy in these more, but these manufacturers continue to rise the prices on their beautiful new trucks. And with interest rates holding, inflation is holding, the average MSRP is creeping up. Full-size Super Duty pickup trucks from Ford, from Ram, as well as GM HD trucks are all going up. Sierra HD as well as Denali's are all creeping up in their MSRPs. Ford as well can't get rid of any of their Lightnings. It's bad enough, but they still pumping up their MSRPs. Why is that? Well, they're trying to get ahead of the electrification market, and a lot of these OEMs like this all producing these ICE vehicles in the wake of trying to produce enough profits to actually subsidize their electric vehicle manufacturing processes. We know it's less profitable, at least at this point, so they need to get ahead of that, and that's what these OEMs are doing, is charging you and I more, so we're ultimately paying for this research and development on these new electric vehicles. And we've seen new full-size trucks like this go jack up 30, 40, 50% in the last 4 years, which is insult to injury considering inflation hasn't come near half of that. So people are clearly paying more than they probably should. So the idea of shortages, chip shortages, or cost of doing business, that doesn't seem to resonate with a lot of customers, because we know the average inflation rate is only maintained between 3.5% in the last 3-4 years. But in contrary, most of these vehicles have gone up $30,000 or $40,000, maybe even more for certain models. Now in 2022, there was a simulated shortage of full-size pickup trucks. People were scooping up anything they could. Even bad late model vehicles were often scooped up by a lot of buyers. So people were getting desperate, or there was this need to spend the money as the governments were throwing money hand over fist with government incentives, giving you money because people were stuck at home, couldn't work. So US, Canadian governments were throwing money out. People could stay home and feed their families. But unfortunately, people in a lot of cases went out, bought expensive new trucks, cars, SUVs, and it left them in a world of hurt now, because now they're stuck. When they had to pay back some of that money that the governments were asking for, they didn't have it. Now we're facing this big crisis, and repossessions have literally been following the cost of living, the cost of rising prices of vehicles, and then we see more increased costs this year. But even vehicles like this, repossession vehicles, they're quite used and abused. They're not in particularly good shape. How do you fix this and get these back on the lot? Obviously, repossessed vehicles usually are neglected and abused because they don't care anymore. They know the writing's on the wall. Yeah, they let the tires go flat. Yeah, they abuse them. Look at body panels. They don't bought with paint protection film. Body panel falls off. Who cares? Here's another repo special right here. Easy come, easy go. Usually oil-filled money. They get the money. They come, they go, they spend it all on big wheels and expensive parts and accessories, and then unfortunately when it comes time to pay the piper wants more money they don't have, the government wants their take, and taxation takes the rest, and vehicles like this have to go back to the dealer and ultimately to the auction to get rid of and pay the banks. People are also finding themselves underwater with a lot of these vehicles going negative equity because they bought these, it was the latest and greatest from Jeep, and they wanted the Grand Wagoneer or the Wagoneers, but they couldn't afford it once they went back to work. They start to pay their bills again, and the government wanted their feed. A lot of these vehicles either got handed back, they tried to trade it at a major loss, or it just got repoed.
So Mark, here at these used car dealer auctions like what I'm at right now, we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing repos going through the system, auto loan delinquencies spiking. We're seeing cars. Check this out, this BMW repo. Tiny rims. People are mixing and matching parts on a lot of these repos. They know that they're going to lose them because they can't afford to make payments. So why fix them?
And as you can see, it's raining and I'm getting drenched over here, as you see. But the weather doesn't stop for anybody, and it doesn't stop for those homeless people, unfortunately, that are now snookered because they couldn't afford to make their payments on the house, the car, and now they find themselves on the street. And obviously, the cost of living crisis is impacting everybody in a different way. Not everybody's living on the street. Some people have to cut back on those extras. Some people can't afford to eat that extra burger. Some people can't afford to move into that house, or maybe have to sell their property and downsize. Some people literally don't have a place to sleep at all. And even at the very least, some people can't afford to buy that car that they once hoped that they would buy, and that dream car went bye-bye the last couple years. But even a truck like this, we're looking at this beautiful Ram right here. As you see, it's a Rebel. As you notice, it is a 4x4 Rebel Ram. Does have the big tow hook there, and of course you have a spray and liner. Beautiful unit. You got the crew cab here, all-terrain rubber, 1500 Hemi e-torque on there with the big vents on the front. Very attractive looking truck, but that comes at a cost. Let's take a look. I think there's a sticker over here. Let's have a look. Yes, sir. It looks like it's about $85,000 right there, everybody. 85 grand. Not everybody needs that truck, I'll be honest. At some level, we all need to get around, and that's the thing. It doesn't just impact these big loaded up trucks, it impacts every vehicle. Mavericks are going up, Lightnings are going up, small base trucks are going up. Everything is going up in price. MSRPs are rising on every manufacturer, from even Hyundai to Nissan as well. We're seeing it in all over the big three, the Ram, GM, as well as Ford. They're all rising their prices. Why? In anticipation of what we're about to see, a fully electrified market. Or so they say. So the cost of living crisis is real. With all these rising truck prices, again, $48,500 is the average transaction price. It's all on the backs of the fact that these OEMs want to get ahead of these electrified market, and they want you to wear that. Now, as we see, there's a lot of full-size trucks here for sale. We see them all over, and there's another row and another row over there. There's vans, Dodges, Jeeps, all kinds of vehicles for sale. But what they don't have a lot of here, and this is a clear indication as to what's going on in the market, tons of brand new inventory, but almost no used inventory. As we look at all of these vehicles right here, this essentially is their used lot right here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 vehicles. That's all they have here, obviously, on the used sector here. Everything is sold out. People are buying used vehicles, and used car prices are holding steady. Yes, they're not going down like a lot of people thought or hoped they would, but in fact, instead of spending all that money on these brand new trucks and cars, people are deciding, you know what, I'm gonna go on down to the dealership, and what they have on the used car market might be a little easier to afford. And it is, because you don't pay all those tire levies, fees, costs, paint protection film, all of those other widgets that they add on top, plus all the extra taxes. You don't pay that so much when you're buying a used vehicle. And people are making other decisions because these truck prices are going up so much. I mean, trucks like this is used. Obviously, we're dealing with a Ram with a big bold grill on it, big hook on it, all kinds of hooks and hardware, all-terrain rubber. This is a 2500 HD truck, and this is a Hemi 6.4. This is still a gas job. And of course, we have the big extra door Power Wagon. Look at that. It's a great looking truck, but people are making the move and deciding, do I need all this extra hardware? No, this truck is going to cost me an arm and 3 legs. They can't afford the gas with this 6.1 liter Hemi engine under the hood here, right there. They're clearly deciding that's way too much. I bit off more than I can chew. Now people are going to the Mavericks. We talk about that BYD that's knocking on the door. And all of the OEMs are starting to consider we need smaller trucks. Canyons, Colorados are also on the radar. So all these OEMs are looking at selling a smaller version of the full-size truck. I mean, nobody needs a full-size truck unless you're using it for work. A lot of people like them. They're convenient, they're built well, they're sturdy, but do you really need it? If all you need is a little hauler to get to work downtown, move around, do you need that $80,000, $90,000 truck when you can get away with the $35,000, $40,000 vehicle? I don't know, but people made a lot of hard choices, and now we're having to make adjustments. The old days, how we were 6 or 7 years ago, has changed. Where we could drive that full-size 6.1 Hemi, now we have to think about something a little smaller and more economical. Because even incentives like this, where we're now looking at a lot of the OEMs are offering here even $18,500 off. And yeah, reduced payments, more affordable access to a lot of these new full-size trucks. The dealers are having to get much more creative to try to move all of this inventory it's not selling, because these are expensive trucks. Dually painted handles. This is a Ram with the Cummins turbo diesel 3500 HD right there. Absolutely gorgeous. Big beefy mirrors on there. And look, even this is a limited crew cab night edition right here, and it goes for a whopping $121,000. So now to get people to buy, they're actually having to do other things. Not just give $1 up, but they're offering lower finance rates, and in some cases 0% or 1.9% financing. Even though they know that the bank rate is much higher than that, they're willing to absorb some of those costs or offset those costs. But that just tells you how much margin they have in these vehicles. They just need to move these products along because the OEMs are bearing down. They can't sell these 2023s and 2024s, and yet the manufacturer are pushing them, telling them that they have to sell the new 2025s that are just rolling on the lots. And so the fear is people are going to see these incentives. They're going to be sucked in by the vortex and say, oh, look, 18,000 off, 1.9%. I got to get that truck. But what we haven't failed, or what we failed to realize, is that those trucks are grossly priced up in the first place, and people are going to continue to get themselves in a pickle and buy vehicles that they really can't afford. Minimum 20% down, don't exceed your 10% monthly income, and keep your loan term down to less than 4 years. That's almost an impossibility with today's current truck pricing. Now, the only saving grace is the banks have gotten a little tighter and a little stricter with who they actually loan money to, because it's people that often overextend themselves are finding themselves in a pickle. Repossessions. And in this unfortunate market of unpredictable storms like we see right here, this doesn't just mean that the buyer's potentially facing repossessions if they don't keep up with their payments. Having all of these trucks on the car lots often just means that these dealerships themselves have floor plan costs that they have to adhere to. That's right, monthly charges that they're paying. It's like credit charges, no different than you or I. If you're borrowing money from the bank to pay for that new vehicle, you're going to be paying your monthly service charges for that. And then it's no different with the dealership. All these vehicles on the lot, they are actually paying. They don't own them outright. We're dealing with the 2024, maybe even 23. They don't own those vehicles outright. They pay a monthly service fee to have those vehicles on there. But as they run out of time, they build inventory. It's an avalanche from the factory, meaning unless they sell these vehicles, the repossessions can actually hit the dealer level too, and they can also be repoed. The dealers can be in a position where the banks start taking these vehicles away from the dealers, sending them to auction and sold at potentially pennies on the dollar.
And Mark, here's the other thing. You see this Escalade on it. It says floor plan. That's the seller. It's so bad right now that dealers are actually getting their cars repossessed and sent to auction for them to be helped to sell them, because dealers are in a bad place right now. They're having a much harder time selling their vehicles. People cannot get loans for a lot of these cars. And if you can't get a loan for a car, in a lot of cases, you can't buy the car. If people can't buy cars, they're not buying them from dealers. Dealers are in trouble right now.
So these rising truck costs aren't all just in the sake of making maximum profits. It's actually a response to poor sales that they're all trying to make up because they haven't been selling the products. So if they sell less vehicles, they're going to have to up the margin per unit. And of course, what does that do to the buyer at the bottom end of the spectrum? We end up paying more. So your $1,000 a month payment becomes $1,200 a month, becomes $1,500 a month. And now we're faced with a cost of living crisis, deciding, do I make my car payment this month, or do I eat? Or do I even have medicine for the kids? Or do I pay for that truck? Those are the conundrums a lot of people are facing. And while they don't necessarily have to go out today and buy that new truck, the worst part is those that bought a truck 2 or 3 years ago are now faced with those fixed charges, and the rest of life just continues to climb in price. That said, right there with Ford, what's going on with the quality? Are they going out of business? I don't know. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.